Good morning, amigos and amigas. Kind of a dreary, overcast day. I have a viewer who is a local who is actually bringing some gunpowder and some bows, bamboo-backed long bows that he had laid up. He's bringing them over so I can experiment with the gunpowder in greater detail with better gunpowder. That shotgun powder, very round, very large grains. So wasn't able to develop really any fine patterns without creating too much heat. So there is where it stands. You notice you're looking at the back of the bow. The back of the bow that was going to be gunpowder painted. Anthony, if you don't want to be surprised, stop watching this video. I went because it has basic lines of a lot of Cherokee bows. There are some differences. But basic lines, I went with a Cherokee pattern. You ready? There it is. I'll give a close-up. I just put just kind of a temporary black on here. I'm going to probably do a fancier handle, but I wanted to give you the impression of the color. And so I've got white bands, white spot, then these circular patterns. And this is an interesting pattern in my mind because what does your eye see? Do you see the negative or do you see the positive? And I'm not going to get into the myriad of, let's see, anthologies. I can't come up with the right word, so anthologies is a cool word, of the meanings of these designs. I'm not going to get into that. I simply want to show you what I did. It has the first coat of spar urethane on here to darken it and enrichen it. Beautiful bow. I picked up some wet dry sanding grit yesterday, and that's what I'm going to use with my foamy and wooden sanding block to get the final tiller into it. Now here's the thing. I am going to experiment on this bow. If you notice, because this was repurposed, reused, recycled from a heavy American elm longbow with narrow face and then a deep round cross section, which doesn't really jive with American elm because it's on the harder side of softer elms. It's softer than wych elm or wych elm, however you want to pronounce it. It's a lot softer than rock elm, but it is in the soft elm group along with slippery or red elm. And so that round cross section with that concentration of compression along the belly doesn't do it justice. And so you notice, if you're looking at it, there's a slight deflex in it, owing to the fact that it was made from a different bow that was just sitting there collecting dust, and I thought it needs to be repurposed. Now the experiment is going to be heat treating the belly with the rawhide on. And here's how I'm going to go about it. I'm not going to just use my heat gun as it is with the round nozzle, which throws heat all over. I have some thin metal. I'm going to make a different tip for it so it's narrow and long. So if it's turned sideways, it's going to concentrate the heat down the center. Hopefully not affect the rawhide, because the rawhide does not want hot. It does not want hot. Doesn't mind dry, doesn't mind somewhat humid, doesn't like dry heat. And so what I shall do is I will take my modified nozzle on my heat gun, turn it sideways, and start just in the handle section where it's hidden by the final hand wrap. And then I can get a good bead on if that heat is going to leak around and hurt it. I'm going to be very careful. I don't want to risk it, but it would be nice to, even though this is perfectly acceptable, it's like 1.5 inches of string follow, which is really, you know, the latent deflex from its previous life. Perfectly acceptable, about 1.5 inches. It's recurved, so I could say it doesn't have string follow or deflex from use or in inadequacy of the wood. It has a deflex. It's a reflex deflex bow. Ha ha ha. But I'm not going to do it. Perfectly acceptable as it is. A great shooting bow. But let's see. I want to see, as a matter of pride, once I get the final tiller, once I get the final draw weight, heat treating the belly, so I will have a consistent heat treating. If I heat treated it prior, which I did, hardened it up a little bit, and then I tillered it, I sanded off that harder outer layer. So I want to have a permanent layer on there. Okay. Nice bow. Okay, sports fans, the next one up is steam bending. Steam bending. Just a little heads up. If you had put your bow on a kettle over some boiling water and you had like that foil over it, and I'm very careful with the foil. I seal it as best as possible around the edges, crimp it around the bow so it's really getting blasted. The tip is, if you can touch any of that which has steamed and you don't get this reaction, it doesn't hurt. If it doesn't hurt your knee, if you don't need a hot pad to keep your knee from burning, even under jeans or forms of pants or long shorts, it hasn't steamed enough. It needs to be hot enough to hurt you. Hurting is your friend when you're steaming. It has to be hot enough to hurt you. And pull it off. Let's say it's going to be a gull wing or whatever. Pull it off immediately, starting with, you can see my balance is askew, really working on my language. I saw a Roseanne Barr video and she can't string a sentence together without really being offensive. So I'm practicing on my English. Small pressure in the beginning, and then build it up and try to get the feeling of this wood is resisting me at this point. I'm not feeling it wanting to bend. When it stops, when it hits a wall, stop forcing it. You have to coerce it. You have to work with the wood. Be my friend, Bo. I want to help you. And gentle pressure at first. Gosh, I have no balance. And then applying it until you feel a wall. You can't say, Bo, I want you to bend, so I'm going to force you. It doesn't work. You have to work with the wood. Now suppose you bent it, you got a little bend in there. It's like, gee golly, I need to steam it again. But if I steam it again, it's going to go back to the original position. Haha, think of this. What do you have on the end? You have tips. Sometimes you have string grooves already in it. Put the string on and brace it backwards to the point where that bend that you just put in is stable. You can certainly then put your bow back on the pot with a string on it that's holding that bend in place. If you don't have a form and clamps, that string works the same way, and steam it. The nice thing is, if you have some pressure on that string forcing it into a back bend, as it's steaming and getting pliable, before you take it off the heat, while it's heated, you can always get more bend out of it because you're steaming it under pressure. Another trick, you have a little block of wood. You've got your bow, you don't have a bending form, you don't have clamps, you've got string. You are working within our technology. You've got a back bend on it. The bow is over the steam. Slide a couple blocks, you'd have to do it outside of the steam envelope, between the string and the bow to put more pressure on that section. And then, even with that string on it, you can pull it off really fast and continue the bend. Continue the bend. Put it over a sink or over the ground or whatever. You've got that pot that's still boiling. You've got a lot of hot water on there. Put it down there, take that pot, pour the hot water over the handle. If you want to steam it, just pour yourself some more water. That hot water is your friend. It's counterintuitive. You would think that if you're steaming wood, you're getting it wet, so you have to let it dry before you start using it. The steam is actually drying out the wood. It's actually drying out the wood. So hitting it with that hot water helps. It helps get the moisture back in there. It's all good. Lastly, a lot of people that are watching these videos aren't into primitive archery. I notice I like to be kind to my subscribers, so I go there and I look at it and I look at your videos, and not a lot of them have bow videos on, or primitive archery or hunting videos on their favorites. A lot of people came over from Vard. A lot of people come over from other areas. I even have a few people watching it that are just musicians, that are just entertained by my manner. And so for those musicians out there, it's funny, and especially beginning musicians, is I'm really working on my pinky. I'm really working on finger independence. And so it's like, I'm playing some runs on things where I'm not using the 7th fret, just maybe the 6th fret here and there, it depends on your scales. And most of the time you're just using ring finger, middle finger, and your pointer finger, right? Because you're just, if you're a mandolin player, violin player, this would be the finger that you lay down on the 5th fret. And I got to thinking, let's go guitar here. And so when I'm doing runs, practicing, instead of using my ring, that's my ring finger. I am not being offensive. Instead of using my ring finger on the 5th fret, I use my 4th finger, and then, the middle finger on the 3rd, and this on the 2nd and the 1st. And so this finger, again, I'm not being bad. This is my ring finger. I am not saying anything to you except this is my ring finger. This is getting a break. And so you're playing these runs, 1st and 2nd fret, if you're a mandolin player, middle finger, I'm directing it over here, 3rd fret, pinky, 5th fret. Watch for finger independence what your ring finger is doing. If it's like going to town, taking a trip, it's not doing anything, it's just kind of flopping around like this, pay particular attention and try to get your ring finger pointed straight at you, not moving around like, you know, it's drunk. And so while you're doing this on the 5th fret, be very aware, even if you have to slow down, keeping your ring finger steady. And that seems to be a really good practice and helps your pinky speed and able to push down the frets and not, while you're playing, you know, going all over the place. And I think that is about it. That is about it. This is kind of a crummy day. Why, John, do you not have this brace? Why, John, aren't you showing us drawing it back? Well, I put the coat again of the spar urethane on yesterday, and I'm going to take 2 days with the back, with the rawhide, because if it gets wet, it's not tensionally as strong as if it's dry. I'm going to give this every ability to be totally dry before I string it, do the final tillering, deem it good after the heat treating if I'm able to without hurting the rawhide. Then I will brace it, then I will put some stress on it. But until then, this is just for your amusement. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate that you watch my videos, and I really appreciate that I don't get a lot of wingnuts, you know, commenting here and there. That's a good thing. That just shows you that our little group is a great group of people. Have a good one, and I hope this day finds you, gotta have a tagline, in good spirits and in good health. I'm just gonna do a sweep here. And I know Anthony watches this too. I'm going to send your walnut bow out tomorrow, that walnut gull wing bow. Beautiful bend in it, beautiful bend. But like I told him, I might go through and steam it, very fine tuning. I want that thing to make the angels sing because of the curves. It's going to be a gorgeous bow, simple Sinew job. And again, you do not need, Sinew is not fiberglass. Sinew is not rawhide. Sinew does not need to have a perfectly flawless finish with no separations in order to be beautiful and work well. About the easiest type of stuff to put on the back of a bow there is. I would rate, actually, Sinew easier to apply to a bow because you have to size both of them. You have to prepare both the backs. It's easier to apply than a really good rawhide finish. That's fine. You know, if people disagree with me, that's okay. But in my personal experience, sinew backing is easier than rawhide backing. Not less time intensive. It's very much more time intensive, but as far as the ease and the ability to get a good strong stuff on the back of it, sinew I believe is easier stuff. Plus it's fun. The last thing, suppose you have a bow that you don't really like and it just sits there. Suppose you were in the process of heat bending it or using it or whatever, and something bad happens, you know, something lifts up. Sinew is your friend, rawhide is your friend. Wrapping an offending area that's showing problems can usually, in a lot of cases, be cured by just sinew wrapping over it to keep those fibers down, to just support it. You see a lot of middle-limb sinew wraps on the highly stressed gull-wing bows. Those things serve a purpose. Keeps it from delaminating, keeps everything together. There are ways to repurpose bows. There are ways to fix issues in bows. If you have particular issues, please ask me. That is now it. That's now it. Time to do some stuff.